Justin, he'll let me know when we're trying to track down Vic Toews, and we're working on that. Let's talk about Vic for a minute. He's just stepped down as the Minister of Public Safety, the Canadian federal minister. And, he's a polarizing figure, but I think he's done overall, no one's perfect, but he's done a very good job, Ross McLean.
Yeah, the funny thing I find with politics, I'm a guy who likes to see, whichever the politician is, whichever the class, that you're doing the right thing and you're doing what the public wants. In particular in the law and order issues, as you know, I'm quite concerned about them. I deal with violence against women and sexual assaults against children and that sort of thing. And he's had a long career of toughening up the laws that were, even now they're still too lax, but he's toughened them up, throughout his career.
I've just got an email from Vic where he's having a hard time phoning through, so Justin's going to call him. I've just sent you over a number, Justin, a different number to call Vic. He's in Calgary tonight. He's one of these guys who got into politics, I think, I'm not sure it was with the Alliance or Reform, but he was, I think, in 1995. He might have been with the Tories in Manitoba. He served in the Manitoba legislature, and then he moved on with Prime Minister Harper and his crew. And you know how they were almost zealot-like when they first went to Ottawa, and he was down there with Stockwell Day as well. And this guy always talked tough. There's no question about it. And I met Vic Toews. Actually, I think I met him the first time with Charles Adler, who was doing a radio show talking about gun violence, because as you know, Ross, and that's one of the reasons that you're often on the show and obviously in the Sun News Network as well, talking about crime. That's our big issue here on the Late Shift as well. It's probably our core issue. Last year was a horrible summer with the Danzig Street barbecue shooting and obviously Eaton Center shooting and many others. This year has been much quieter, thank God. And knock on wood, there's incidents, but nothing like it was. Hats off to obviously the Toronto Police Chief Blair, the programs that showed that worked after Danzig Street. But a lot of this, I think, and I really believe this, and is because of Vic Toews. Vic Toews has been one tough customer as the Minister of Public Safety. Tom Godfrey, my colleague who's now retired from the Toronto Sun, who covered for 30 years immigration and covered all the tough crime, says there's never been a better Public Safety Minister or Solicitor General than Vic Toews. Ross McLean, former Toronto cop, obviously advocate for children and violence against women. What are your feelings on Vic Toews?
Well, the thing that I liked about him is where he came from, even before all the politics, Joe. He was a prosecutor. So he sat there firsthand and saw what was going on with the prosecutors, with the catch and release programs. He got in and he steadfastly put in all of these different laws, like minimum sentences for holding guns, not being allowed to get out on house arrest if you're in for violent crimes. I mean, there's still more that he's putting in because we still, we need these people who are violent and recidivist, the worst of the worst, locked up. They can't be out shooting and killing people, and that's been the story of our city.
And you need to have somebody that's not afraid to bring that through at great personal cost sometimes. Vic Toews has joined us now. Thank you, Vic. It's first of all, welcome to the Late Shift. Welcome to News Talk 1010. How's that first day of freedom feeling?
Well, pretty good. A little hectic. You have to learn to do everything yourself again. That's the one thing about being in big bureaucracies, but it's also a real sense of freedom. And I'm in southern Alberta right now in Calgary, just outside of Calgary, visiting my brother here on some business as well. And boy, it is just wonderful not to have to worry about 100 different files. Unfortunately,
well, we're going to make you worry about it one more night, okay? Here on the Late Shift. Listen, I want to introduce you to Ross McLean, who's a former Toronto cop. He's a Toronto crime specialist, probably the most well-known in Toronto. And I know that you've commented a lot on Minister Toews' work, and so this is a good chance for you guys to meet here over the airwaves.
Yeah, well, I've been covering a lot of your work over the years, Minister, especially the laws toughening up the crimes against violence, and most of all, standing up for victims. And I've got a lot of followers on my pages who, when I put up information about a new law and a new law that's coming up and some of the private member bills that are still being sponsored, they're just thrilled to see that someone is finally paying attention to child sex offender victims, to women who are violently abused, and to do something about these recidivist guys with the guns who just seem to be out and gunning down people all over our country.
Right. I think what has happened in our country, there's been such a mythology built up about what should be done, despite the fact that what was being done wasn't working. And I think that that's the one thing I appreciate about Stephen Harper. He gave us an opportunity to get things back on track, rebalance the justice system, as I call it. Instead of putting the rights of criminals ahead of the rights of victims, we are putting the interests of the victim right back where it should belong, right in first place, and everything else flows from that. Criminals understand that. They understand that the system that was developed under prior governments gave them a break. There was no incentive for them to get out of the crime business. Now we're giving them that incentive. You want to carry a gun illegally, you're going to get 3 years. These mandatory minimum prison sentences for handguns and any type of illegal firearm, they are gold because they are a real disincentive. And those experts who claim that, criminals don't follow the law. Criminals understand the law better than most lawyers and better than the average citizen. They understand that there comes a time when the punishment outweighs the benefit, and I think we've accomplished that in the area of guns. So gun crimes are going down. It's not where it should be. We wanted a much lower gun rate and crime rate, but I think we're definitely on the right track.
Vic Toews is my guest, who's just retired basically today from many, many years, since 2000 in the House of Commons as the member for Prosecutor in Manitoba. And obviously he had several portfolios in the Harper government, and I think the most high profile is the public safety minister, which we would think of as a solicitor general, a former Crown attorney, and an all-round great Canadian. And I think that when somebody of your stature, somebody that came from the street, if you will, all the way to the top job, it must be kind of scary to walk away from it after all these years. I mean, you've been in politics since 1995, and just
Right.
like that, you're no longer Minister Toews, you're Mr. Toews.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a good feeling. And one of the things that I've learned, I've lost elections, so I know that the power that you achieve through politics is a very fleeting type of power. It rests on the goodwill that you establish with the voters. And so in 99, when I was part of the Philman government that lost, I felt what it was like to lose. So throughout the time that I spent in federal politics, I said, look, this is just temporary. I'm only here for a short while, but I'll tell you, I've got things to do, and I will focus on it. And I was so blessed with having a great caucus, a great leader who allowed this agenda to move forward because they understood it needed to be done.
Vic Toews is my guest here on the Late Shift. And, Ross, when you think of Vic, I think that, there hasn't been a major shooting in Toronto this year. And I think the mandatory minimums are a part of that because, and Vic can tell us better, but if you have, in the old days, and that was like last year, everybody had a gun, 12 years old. And now it's a little trickier to have a gun because if you get caught with it, you're doing that unless a judge kind of plays with it, which we've seen, 3 years minimum.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and Vic is absolutely right about the criminals know the law. I remember when I used to arrest them, they'd be telling me when they were getting out, when the bail courts were and everything else. And I'd be taking some guys, tell them they're going to jail, and they said, well, I'll be gone before you finish the paperwork. And they were right. And there's been just a real, I tell you the other part, Joe, is this imbalance towards looking after victims. And I think some of the legacy that this government and this minister will have something to do with is protection of children against pedophiles and the victims of it, to make it tougher, to make it easier for the police to get their convictions. We've got some new laws coming up on that we need to get passed. Let's
take a break here. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Vic Toews is going to stay with us for one more segment. We've got some calls as well, 416-872-1010, Star Talk 8255. You can text us at 71010. If you're out of town, 1-877-518-5151. You're listening to The Late Shift on In-Depth Radio, News Talk 1010. My guest host tonight is Ross McLean here in studio. Later, after the 11 o'clock news, We're going to have Jenny James in studio singing Mayor Ford, The World Will Remember, a song that came out of this very show. And we'll tell that story later. You won't want to miss it. Jenny's everywhere, and she's come home here to the late shift at 11 o'clock. Vic Toews is on the line. My guest, somebody that I'm going to miss very much in federal politics, a straight shooter, honest person, and a tremendous minister, justice minister, if you will, public safety. And Ross, we were talking off the air that Vic was one of those people that was his own man in Ottawa. Obviously took a lot of heat from the opposition and people that didn't like what he was doing, just much the same as Mayor Ford gets, and in fact, very dirty, kind of underhanded personal attacks. And yet, he was a team player and handled all of that with class.
Yeah, sometimes, and we need more people who will stand up and call the balls and strikes honestly, Joe. To say that this isn't working, this is what we need to do, even though it may sound harsh and it may seem offensive to some. So, someone has to stand up there to do this work for us.
Okay, Vic Toews, are you okay to take a couple calls? They're queuing up here. They want to talk to you.
Sure.
Okay, let's take the first call here. Sean in Scarborough, welcome to the late shift. The minister, recently retired actually today, is on the line, and also Ross McLean is here.
Harper's best ministers.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've really helped. You and Minister Kenney really helped clean up the mess that the Liberals left behind. The Liberal Party of Canada did was they left Canada exposed to criminals and terrorism in extreme ways, and it's now almost impossible to visit our friends in the States because they suspect that we're all like this, even though we're not. They have that idea in their mind, and it's going to take probably years for them to come around to looking at us as allies again. But if the Conservatives can win another majority and these policies can hold true because they're good ideas, go after the criminal and not the victim, then maybe the states will trust us one day again and we'll be better friends in their eyes, because they cause a lot of damage to the Canadian image in the eyes of the Americans. It's very, you guys are fixing it, but there's been a lot of damage before you guys came to power.
Thank you very much for the kind words you said about me. I'm almost feeling like I shouldn't have left politics all of a sudden, but I know I've done the right thing.
Yeah, you're not in Provencher here. The 70%, I don't think you're going to get in Toronto. Sorry, Vic. Yeah.
But what I would like to say about our relationship with the Americans is that with this Beyond the Border initiative, working together not only on trade issues but common security issues, I've got to say that our relationship with the Americans, specifically Janet Napolitano and Eric Holder, the Attorney General, is excellent. I believe they do trust us. When we've had very serious incidents that have occurred in the last little while, some public, some not, they were on the phone with us right away, discussing it, ensuring that there was clear communication between our governments. And, despite the fact that there were perceived threats coming from Canada or vice versa, the border did not shut down. We've built a level of trust that will benefit Canada's trade relationship, will benefit our jobs, and this overall strategy of the Beyond the Borders that our government initiated, I think is building that trust. You're right, it's slow, and even friends disagree from time to time, but I can clearly say we are friends, and we will remain friends with the Americans.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Excellent call. Let's go to George. George, welcome to the late shift. You're on with Minister Toews.
Hi. Well, I appreciate a great deal of the work that's been done under this government. There was one comment I heard this evening that I found extremely troubling, and I'm as conservative as the next guy, and that was to make convictions easier to get. I kind of like the rule of law and the presumption of innocence, and I hope somebody misspoke and didn't mean it in that sense.
Vic?
Right. I think, I heard that, and I twinged a little bit. It wasn't me who said it, but I think the point that was trying to be made was that right now the procedural barriers to getting a conviction, which do not relate to substantive natural justice areas or charter rights, are just so prevalent in our criminal justice system. They don't add anything to the quality of justice, to the quality of the hearing, but simply create impediments for those who are truly morally culpable and legally, culpable, finding ways of evading that responsibility. And even judges have commented on that this procedural mountain that is overlaying our criminal justice system is becoming more disconcerting. And so I think the comment was meant in that sense that what we're trying to do is ensure that the system is fair, it respects constitutional rights, but it doesn't let the guilty walk simply because a police officer has made an innocent error that was not malicious and that did not mislead the court.
Yeah, and that was my comment there, and you've explained it well. That's what I meant. When I say conviction's easier to get, listen, I'm the most stand-up guy that says the cops have to get it right if they're going to get you. But the problem is we have procedures, laws in place sometimes, and laws that were written for another era that weren't written for today. And that's what we've seen get accomplished. So we can get people convicted who need to be convicted fairly. Okay,
let's. Vic Toews is my guest. That was a good call. And let me ask you, before we take this call, it's talking about the whole business of pedophiles and the concern of the child pornography and that. We've got a big story here in Ontario. I'm sure you've heard of it, Minister Toews. Yes. I know it's kind of an awkward time for you. I'm sure that this is something if you'd been in office. Anyway, it's come about. Associate professor or a professor at University of Toronto, OISE. His name is Benjamin Levin. Actually, he actually worked in Manitoba. He's the former Deputy Minister of Education here in Ontario, was riding in the Pride Parade just last week with the Premier here and the Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau, right beside them. So you know the story. It's a huge story, and obviously he's before the courts and he's entitled to his day in court. But what is your reaction to that? And it's shocked everybody here, and it's scaring the hell out of people.
Well, the entire issue of child pornography is such a horrible situation. It is a horrible crime. The destruction of the innocence of young children, of infants. Indeed, some of the files that I've seen, some of the pictures that I've seen, I'm sure Ross has seen exactly the same. This is horrendous, and it's not getting any better. And when people in influence are involved in this kind of thing, with the ability to propagate and disseminate that type of abuse against our most precious asset, I'm certainly horrified, and I certainly think that if people in those type of positions are found guilty, the court should deal very harshly with them, because this isn't simply a property matter, which is serious enough, but this is the destruction of human lives, and the damage that is caused lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm standing for, Joe. I mean, we've seen it. I've talked about it before a lot. You've got that Sheldon Kennedy Center out there for kids who are victims of this sort of thing. And you know what, Joe? It's a life sentence for some of these people, and we've been giving out volume discounts to the offenders. We'll
talk about it a little more after we let Minister Toews go, but I just want to say this point is I'm not saying I'm not surprised, but I knew something was funny inside education in Ontario, just in light of all the columns that I've written over the years of strange things, from vegetable sex being talked about in the curriculum to the kinds of posters we've seen here at the TDSB, where they're encouraging kids to be involved in oral and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm not linking them. Obviously, this guy's entitled to his fair due diligence, but I wasn't surprised, if you know what I mean. But Vic Toews, we're going to let you go on into your evening. We appreciate all the time here. There's a couple more callers we'll take after the break, but take care of your kids. I know you got a young family. Enjoy your summer, and take a lot of pride. Obviously, I could say that as a columnist, and doing a tremendous job keeping Canada safe.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. All the best to all your listeners.
We'd love to have you back too, when you get settled into retirement. We have a feeling you could bring something to the show.
Absolutely.
Down the road.
You've always treated me fairly, Joe, and I think you understand where I'm coming from, and I don't mind you beating me up every once in a while.
Well,
but,
the only time I ever really beat up the minister, and I didn't blame him, was the fact that the Kingston Pen is being closed down, and the one in your riding or right next to it is staying open. But and I'm from Kingston. I've got family from Kingston. My cottage is Kingston. But other than that, Minister, you're 9 out of 10. That's not bad.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, and have a pleasant evening.
All the best, Minister. That's Vic Toews. What a great guy, Russ. And the country's going to miss him.
Listen, we need stand-up people in law enforcement. We didn't get a chance to talk to the minister about it, but, it's crossing over now where public safety used to be just about what's going on here, but now you see with the pedophiles, it's international. You see with terrorism, it's international. It's a real tough job, and those are going to be hard shoes to fill.
We've got a couple calls. We'll take those after the break. You're listening to In Depth Radio, News Talk 1010.